just out of curiosity, were you there when Netflix went and pitched themselves um to Viacom to get bought out by them or no?
Oh gosh, I'm going to guess I was because
Yeah, I forget
by the
what
time
year it was.
by the time I left, I don't remember that. I was not privy to those
It was when
conversations.
Blockbuster was around,
Oh
and they were
wow.
they
That
laughed in
early
their
on, like
face.
like when Netflix, like this is like when they were still selling DVDs.
Oh yeah, they approached Viacom and they
Oh, that
offered
I
Viacom for $50 million.
well, Viacom had a disaster already on Blockbuster, and couldn't see clearly the future at that point. So yeah, I mean that was a different Netflix. That was a Netflix that was sending you DVDs through the mail.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember when Paramount or Viacom bought when Viacom bought Paramount, they inherited Blockbuster because Blockbuster was owned by Paramount. So this goes back to the 90s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And we went Blockbuster at that time. This was at the height of Blockbuster, by the way. They were,
Yeah, they were giant.
so
Who's ever going to take that giant down?
exactly. So I remember going down there. We had like a little meeting of the minds. So a bunch of us flew down to, I think Tampa was where they were based, somewhere in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, I think, like the Wayne Huizenga days. And we flew down to Blockbuster and we basically had this 2-day meeting with them. And it was like they presented to us. And then this was like the cable networks at Viacom, so Nickelodeon did a presentation, MTV did a presentation, and, it's like, just getting to know each other. But I remember, and this is early 90s, I remember they did this whole presentation and they were explaining how one day you're going to be able to watch movies on your computer.
What?
Now, and they showed us this whole thing. And by the way, so this had to be, I don't know, 92, 93.
Were you guys like, that's not
Well, we were
possible.
barely using
That's crazy.
computers
You didn't even know
at this point.
Yeah.
So it just sounded like science fiction.
Yeah.
But my point is,
So
they could actually see it coming in 1992 and still couldn't get there.
Yep.
But I always found that interesting that they could sort of see it coming that far away. What's that?
There was one executive that was working on Blockbuster that saw it and nobody paid attention.
Well, look, they were already, even in 1992, I remember they were like very excited because they were already trying. I never heard the term brick and mortar before. It's the first time I'd heard the term brick and mortar. They were already trying to get out of their physical commitments, quote, brick and mortar. And they were talking to Nickelodeon about building like these kid zone things to, where Blockbusters used to be. So already in 92, they could see the demise of brick and mortar. They could see the coming of the digital age. And like I said, they still didn't manage to get there.
So one last question, navigating a shifting landscape. So your leadership roles have evolved into a focus on executive coaching. You've described your approach as relatable and purpose-driven when guiding leaders through today's shifting landscape. Could you share some insights or lessons learned that could help content creators and media leaders navigate the massive changes happening in the media universe today and how to prepare for tomorrow?
Well, look, I think the most important thing, and I got to learn this at MTV, which, was always about change. So, at MTV, early on, at least in those days, 80s and 90s, when it was really rolling, we decided that we weren't going to grow old with our audience. We were going to turn the audience over every couple of years and remain something that was relevant to, a certain demographic, so-called 18 to 24. Versus say like Rolling Stone, which kind of decided to grow old with their audience. Right. And so I learned about change and I learned about evolving and I learned about, not being afraid of change. And, so it's working today. It may not work tomorrow, because tomorrow's a different day. And so I learned to embrace change. I learned to, adapt, and get comfortable with it. And that's something I've always tried to do, as a leader and a manager and now as a coach, to get people to embrace change. Change is good. Change is inevitable. Change is often necessary. And, and it's coming. And if you stand still too long, no matter what you do or how you do it, it's going to pass you by if you don't change and you don't adapt, because the world is constantly changing. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And it's particularly, tough at a place where, things are going well and, this is how we do it. But, I could go back to my cable days where things were going pretty well, but there was a storm on the horizon and it was called streaming. Right. And, I don't think we got in front of it the way we should have. We paid the price a little bit, for sure. But I do remember, as we could see it coming, trying to embrace it, trying to figure it out and trying to figure out what we needed to do to keep up and stay ahead. So that's, change is inevitable, and change is always. And, you got to embrace it, on a certain level, or, you get left behind or run over.
Doug, thank you. It's such a pleasure to chat with you. Have an awesome day.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Take care. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's our show. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us at The Media Machine Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. The Media Machine is hosted by Johanna Salazar. Our producers are Johanna Salazar, Mia Vinciguerra, and Anthony Martinez. Our editor is Adriana Saravia. This episode features music from Envato Elements. Thanks for listening.